Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Veterinary Life Coach podcast. Today, I have a very exciting guest for you. His name is Shane Jacob, and he's the founder of the Horsemanship Journey and developer of the Stable Living Program. He is a certified life coach, professional horseman, entrepreneur, and a soon-to-be author. Welcome to the podcast, Shane. I'm really excited to have you and get to know you.
Julie, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity. I've dealt with a lot of veterinarians over a long period of time, so I'm excited to have this conversation.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had anybody that was a horseman on the podcast, so I'm excited about that. I always have loved horses. I wasn't a horse vet. I was a small animal vet, or I still am, I guess, and exotics, but I love horses. My mom had a horse for years, and so I'm really excited to get to know you. So the first question I always ask all of my guests is to tell me I always say veterinary story, but tell me their story. So if you could just start wherever you want to start and tell me how you got to where you are today, that'd be great.
Right on. I appreciate that. I grew up in a ranching family as a young man in Utah, and I always wanted to be a cowboy. I wanted to do all the cool things that cowboys do. I grew up. I'm named after a movie called Shane that came out in the.
Yep. I remember hearing about that. My mom was a cowboy. She always wanted to be a cowboy too.
Right on. And so I saw these guys and I saw the Westerns, and it was part of my family dynamic and what I experienced. And so I wanted to go for it. And so that's what I set out to do as I was a young man. And what I mean is in my teens and into my early 20s and even beyond. I had something that have come to know that's pretty common, and that is I had thoughts rolling around the back of my mind that said, "Hey, partner, you don't quite measure up to the rest of the world." And so I was really trying to fit in. I did fit into groups in school. I did pretty good in sports, and I did pretty good in school. Yet this whole time I had something's just rolling around and feed me in the back of my head. I'm having these thoughts, hey, those people are better than you. You're not the same. Something's wrong with you, kind of. Really, something's wrong with you. I mean, that's a hard thought, but in
Yes.
retrospect, those are kind of the thoughts that I was having. And I've looked back and I've tried to like pin it on something like why did that happen? But I didn't really have any trauma. I grew up, and so I didn't really have anything to blame it on. It's just the way it was. It's the way it was with me. Those are the thoughts that I was having for whatever reason. At some point was when I was at 16 is what the some point was. When I was 16 years old or 15, I don't know, I experienced alcohol for the first time. And guess what I found? The solution.
Self-confidence, right? In a bottle.
The solution to these problems. No more feeling inadequate, no more feeling unworthy, no more of any of that. Total peace. So I was pretty happy to solve my problem. I was so happy that I dove into a bottle for a couple of decades and
Wow.
drank to excess over a long period of time on a daily basis. And I mean, I'm 100%. I didn't miss days. I got to be a full blown, I don't know, working alcoholic may be a thing because I was still paying the bills. But in the over the course of that, I had a tragic DUI accident, which, and I ended up being just hurting a lot of people, just damaging and permanently hurting a lot of people. And this whole time, unbeknownst to me, I'm feeding these feelings of inadequacy. It's just, it's a vicious cycle. I think in the beginning that things are better. I come to realize that things are disintegrating around me. Most importantly to me is the relationships I had, of course, are just, with my children, with my wife of 17 years, was divorced after 17 years. She ended up committing suicide. It's just been a terrible, terrible deal. And I was unaware of what was happening in this process. And I like to say with the help of horses and God, I broke the cycle. I didn't know if I was ever going to. I actually had thoughts in my mind that I was going to just die drunk, at a very young age, maybe not even make it to 50 uh, and that would be the end of my life. And I was blessed and fortunate and had the wherewithal and the learning and the help of horses and God and people to help me out of that cycle. And the thing about it is, Julie, is as I look back of what was happening, and after a period of time, I got sober, and I've been sober for a long period of time now, coming 8 years or something like that. So as I have looked back on that and said, okay, I've analyzed, had to have the awareness and analyze what's happened to me. And what I realized is that, I've kind of looked at the root, and I've kind of looked at what made the difference for me. How did I break the cycle from waking up every single morning and say, hey, Shane, you got to stop this. This is bad news. I finally recognized it. And then going and doing the same thing again, recognizing it's bad, doing it again, doing it again. And it just further feeds all this stuff, everything, my ability to progress, my ability to earn, like I mentioned before, my personal relationships, and probably the most important, my relationship with myself and with God it's suffering immensely, right?
Right.
In an effort, mind you, to try to make me feel okay about me is where all this began. I was not really conscious of it in the beginning, but that's where it came from. So as I look back and I analyze this, I see what my thoughts were. I see that there's other solutions. And I see that through the lens of horses that demonstrate these principles, it makes it very evident. It helps me to make the change and to know that you don't have to have that suffering in life. It's just not necessary. So, and the other thing is it's regardless of why. You don't have to be an alcoholic, or you don't have to drink to excess for decades to be able to have something that you want to change in your life that's not serving you.
Right.
Or you could look at your life and maybe you're just doing these buffering behaviors, you're doing whatever it is. Maybe it's not drinking, maybe you're just burning out on media and consuming video or something. Who knows what the thing is, but whatever the thing is that you're trying to get the gain from because of this internal thought in your head, there's just better solutions. And uh I'm a living, I don't know, example and there are a lot. In my case, I don't have a unique story or anything like that. I just want to shout my message to the world that, hey, man, you're worth it. And it doesn't matter what you've done. And if you're not happy, there's a better way out.
Right. And it's almost 100% a human condition, right? That we all have something that makes us feel less than or worried about fitting in. I think sometimes when I'm talking to people and coaching people, they think that they're unique and that it's only them that's suffering. And it's really not true, is it?
It is absolutely not true. That's a great point, Julie. That the thing of it is you're exactly right. It's a human condition. I interviewed a lady. It's going to come to me. I can see her face, but anyway, that an author, and she made a statement on my podcast, and she said that her name was almost coming to me. That's the silence, and it will in just a minute.
It'll
But
pop in.
anyway, she made a statement, and she said that every negative human behavior at the core of it, this is a big statement. The core of every negative human behavior is how someone feels about themselves.
Mhm.
When I thought about that, and I was like, wow, I have not proven that to be untrue. That's a big statement.
It
Uh,
is.
Brooke Castillo owns the life coach school. She's been a life coach for 20 years. She's coached thousands of people. She's one of the premier people in the industry of coaching. And she said in her 20 years of thousands of people that everything comes down to people's personal worthiness. The thing of it is you're exactly right. it's totally normal. We're all having similar type things go on, challenges,
Right.
right? And and we all get to experience shame. I mean, this is part of it, right?
Right.
Because hey, here's the deal, man. I've done some stuff. You know what I'm saying? I've done a lot of stuff. Just tell you. And you know the thing of it is, you've done some stuff too.
Yeah, everybody has, right?
And it doesn't. I guess the big message is we all get to experience shame and learn how to have shame resilience to the best we can. But the key is not to get caught up in and have that have such a negative impact on our lives because it just because it doesn't matter what you've done. What you've done and who you are two different things. And when you can learn to separate that and have it be okay, it changes everything. And
Yeah.
really, it doesn't take very long. You don't have to be like me and take a lot of years to figure it out.
Yeah. Well, and if you do, that's okay too, right? So
That
tell
is okay.
me about the horse connection. Like, what did the horses, because part of your coaching is around the horses and what you learned from them, correct? So
It is correct.
explain that to me because we're animal people. Most of the people that listen to my podcast are. Tell me how that came about.
Yeah, I appreciate that. It's a cool connection. And I've I've had the opportunity to be in the horse industry for my entire since I was a young in my 20s, and now I'm not in my 20s anymore. I've been in the horse industry for 30 years as a living. And so I've done a lot of different aspects of horses. I'm a farrier. I've shod horses I still do a few horses a week. And I board horses, shod we board horses here at our place. Um, I've sold horses for a living. I tried to be a rodeo cowboy. I've done a lot of stuff in the horse industry. And, the thing that I've noticed is Julie Goodnight is a horse professional. She's been teaching horsemanship for maybe 40 plus, maybe coming on 50 years. And I talked to her, and Julie Goodnight says that the number one thing that influences the relationship between man and horse is man's confidence in themselves. Okay.
Mm.
So what does that mean? What it means is, and you relate this to people is the cool part, but what it means is when I come to the barn, okay, when I come to the barn, I'm like, whatever I have going on upstairs, okay, when I come to the barn, if I intend on keeping a secret, it ain't happening. Okay. The word's out. And I didn't even have to say anything. These creatures know what's going on and they react to it. I mean, they react to it. And if we're not conscious of it, we're just going to wonder what's going on. And a lot of times we can blame them for what's going on. But they key in on our really, I think what it is our feelings, our vibrations. I don't think they can read our thoughts, but our feelings are coming out in ways that they're keying up on. So if I have some unresolved this or that or the other, or if I don't approach this with as a confident leader, which is what horses need. And by the way, what a lot of our relationships need is our confidence, actually, all of them. I don't know that they all need our personal leadership, but they need our confidence. And when horses don't have that, they think something's wrong. And then they start saying, okay, I'm going to be the leader. And when horses get deciding and making the decision that they're going to be the leader, that's when you need Flight for Life and 911 run ready to call. Okay.
So they
Because
get dangerous.
these are these magnificent, beautiful creatures that are our friends, but they do not make good leaders. Okay. We need to be the leader in the situation. So what I mean by that is um, here's a couple of examples, and just relate this to yourself. I mean, you come to the office, you come to work, you pick up the phone, you talk to somebody, you think they don't know what's going on. They're keying in on it a little bit, more than a lot of times we know. So when we don't show up and horses don't feel and see through our actions that we're confident in what we're doing, then they start to think something's wrong. Now think about this to yourself. You're listening to me. If you think I'm full of it and I don't know what I'm talking about, you're going to think something's wrong, probably change the channel, right? It's kind of the same thing. We're drawn to people. right? We are drawn to people because we feel a connection in them and we feel their genuineness. And if we're going to go their way, we want to feel their confidence. We are drawn to people with confidence. When horses feel that you're incompetent and you're timid and you're afraid, they think that something's wrong out there and that they should be aware, and they're going to jump out from underneath you, run away, or misbehave. And then all this cycle of bad behavior starts, right? And then it compounds and it gets worse and worse. And we have all kinds of bad things. When I show up as a kind, respectful, confident leader with my horse, okay, and I have a few communication skills that I can communicate to the horse clearly, and I know that I can show up and that horse it's amazing to watch the difference. It's amazing just to see and watch the difference between two different people doing the exact same skill. Let's just say that the action that I'm taking towards the horse is the same with two different people, will get a totally different result. And you can apply that to our relationships with ourselves. So that's just one little piece of it right there.
Right. Yeah. Well, as you were saying that, I was thinking that a lot of veterinarians and people that I talk to feel imposter syndrome and not confident, kind of like you were explaining that you felt. And so tell me how that skill that you're talking about, is gaining confidence, is something that you can start to develop. And then how would you do that? Because we need that in the exam room. We need that with the, not only the horses, but the cats and dogs and the people in the exam room. How would you start that journey?
That's a good question. It's like, okay, I'm going with you. I believe you. And we know that if we can recognize it and accept that and you're ready to go, well, how am I going to go about getting it done? And I'll give you some takeaways. We use 6 solid steps to turn into six steps to turn into habits that to work on this relationship with ourselves. So this is interesting, when us that are not veterinarians, okay, when we look at veterinarians and they say something, it may have came down from up above. I mean, the the outside world, your clients look at you with it through a different lens that you're looking through of yourself. And so I think it's important to recognize that if there's something that you can take any of their thoughts and you can accept what they're giving you, their compliment, their respect, their whatever they're giving you, that if you can accept that rather than just, the not, that's one little thing. When I talk about confidence, what I'm talking about is everything. I'm talking about self-image, self-confidence, self-esteem. All of those words are kind of boiled into one thing called the thing, and that is my beliefs about me. Okay. And so if I recognize that it is important, and how about this? I mean, have you ever really thought about this? That what if you could think whatever you wanted to about yourself? What if you could believe? What if it was possible that you could believe anything you wanted to about yourself? And what if there was actually a process through managing your mind that you could achieve that? I mean, it's just kind of fun just to think about, right?
Yeah,
Because
it's mind-blowing, right?
the reality of it is it's possible. This stuff, our mind is giving us stuff unconsciously, and when we recognize that, we have the ability to change it, right?
Right.
So
Yeah, it just doesn't feel possible always, right? Like it
exactly,
feels like it's out of our control when it really is not.
dead spot on,
Yep.
dead spot on. These thoughts, we look at them as circumstances. We think it's the way it is. I mean, that's the way it is, and we really were failing to recognize that the thoughts that we have in our mind, that we have the agency. We've been given the agency, and by the way, the responsibility that goes with that. That when we recognize, basically, to have the awareness to recognize the negative, the thoughts that are not serving us, and then you can come to know that you can change those, because they do. They feel like they feel permanent, and they feel, like unchangeable facts or
That's just the way it is. Yeah, people say that a lot. Well, I'm just not a confident person. Well, I'm just not good at that. Like that's a common thing that people come and say when they're getting coached, right?
Yes, that is common. Yep. And those things, if you can come to realize that those things are those things that you've mentioned, I'm not a confident person, that's a thought that you have in your head. You're the only one that thinks that, and you can change it if you'd like to.
Yeah.
Um,
And
back to your,
I love what you said about us not realizing that people think veterinarians are great and we know what we're talking about. Like we don't accept that, but people outside of our profession think that. And we don't buy into that for some reason.
a lot of times when we talk about confidence, people think, well, you can have too much confidence. And, I know the people like they think all they do is they're all about them and this and that and the other. Too much confidence is not even a possibility. Usually what we're doing is we're confusing that with arrogance, which means I think that I'm better than you, which is a condition caused by I don't think I'm very worthy myself. So when I say so first of all, we don't want to rely on other people's thoughts about us, right? We don't want to be reliant on what you think or what I hear you telling me about me to make beliefs about how I feel about me. We don't want to be reliant on that, right?
Right.
Because we have no control over that. And I have, who knows what you're going to think or somebody else. It's just a bad plan. So, however, what I was saying was when somebody gives you a compliment, when somebody treats you with respect, when somebody gives you something that you can use to prove your belief, to prove it to be true, it's always, this is one of the things of the 6 is to accept it rather than to reject it, right? So if someone says, I appreciate the way that you handled my creature here, and I appreciate your skill. Rather like, it was nothing, whatever, rather than kind of reject that, to accept it, which is simple as we hear this a lot is with compliments like that, is just to accept it, say thank you, believe it, and kind of take it into yourself and just feel what that feels like for a minute. Because the more that you can do that, then that's one of the little pieces, one of the little small pieces that helps you prove your belief about yourself. Now, if somebody says, you permanently did this and that and the other, and you suck as a vet, you can also accept that, or you can choose to reject it. Okay. You can choose to say not, right? Because I don't have to accept everything. It's a choice. But accepting the things that lead you to the result that you want is a good idea, and not accepting the other. That's one piece.
Okay.
I got to give you the next one, which is really easy. We talk about this a lot, and I think we underscore how important that is. And that's our words, right? Our words about ourselves. Okay. Oh, I'm such an idiot. I can't believe I did that. I this and that. I'm so clumsy. I can't remember anything. I'm an idiot, and or using, sometimes we try to make a joke out of it, right? And it's kind of okay. It's probably okay to laugh at yourself, but not to the point where we're constantly feeding our mind. These are thoughts, okay, that we're feeding ourselves and others about how we are. So here's how you differentiate whether you should be saying it about yourself or not. Is this something that you would say out loud to someone that you deeply care about? So if it's not, there's no way you should be saying it about yourself. And let me tell you something, it matters. It matters. Yes. Subconsciously, you're feeding your mind and you're going to get that result. And what if you could turn it around to constantly be saying, cool, hey, Shane, you are a total badass. That was a great job. You do a great job at that. You know what I'm saying? I am good with my clients. I am a good veterinarian. I'm an awesome farrier. I've been doing this for a long time, and look at that job I just did right there. or whatever, whatever the thing is. What if you could turn it around? Because you can. It's possible to do that. So the key here is to pay attention to the thoughts. Those are the sentences that are not out loud that are going through your mind. And the words, the thoughts that you turn into words and spit out about yourself, that you're not, that those words, if you wouldn't, don't talk negative about yourself. Just don't do it. If it's not something that you wouldn't say to someone you deeply love, don't say them about yourself because it matters. That's just a couple little takeaways right there to start
Absolutely.
with.
I love that. Yeah, those are both great pieces of advice. And when you said that, I thought we wouldn't go into an exam room and say mean things about the pet or the client or our family. There's so many times that we check our words, but we don't often check them to ourselves.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Let me give you one more piece of this, and I'm going to relate it back to horses. And one more thing that we can do is forgiveness. Now, here's the deal with horses. Horses are amazing because they have boundaries. They're a solid example of boundaries, but without judgment. It's totally, because here's the deal. As I interact with horses and humans do, me and the rest of the world, it's not going to be a perfect deal, right?
Right.
I'm a human being. I'm going to make mistakes in this relationship. I'm going to communicate something wrong. I'm going to overdo it. I'm going to underdo it. It's not going to be a perfect deal, right? And so that horse knows that if I'm unfair to him or he didn't understand what's going on and he feels like this whole thing is unfair, he's not going to take a beating every day. He's not going to continue. He's going to react to what he thinks is unfair, right?
Right.
Let's just say that you go out and I don't know, what would my example be? My example would be that I was trying to communicate for my horse to do a certain thing, and he couldn't understand it. He thought that this is totally unfair, and so he reacts in a way that I don't want him to, right? Well, he's going to remember that, okay, for a while. And if I do that same thing again, I can expect that same kind of result. However, if I change my approach to this deal and I go at it and I communicate to him a different ask for the same desired result, and this creature determines that that is fair and he understands the communication and I get the desired result, the thing that I did before is gone. I mean, he doesn't look back and he's not going to punish me for my mistake, right? If
Right.
I, and what I mean by boundary is he's not gonna allow me to continue to be unfair to him.
Right.
I'm gonna get I'm gonna get a bad result, a bad reaction if I'm being unfair and he doesn't understand it. He's not gonna just take a beating or just live his life as an unfair thing. That's going to be evidenced in the relationship, right? He's going to act out in a negative way, and that's going to continue to be the same. That's the boundary. Okay.
Right.
However, when I change my approach and this comes to that horse as a fair ask and it's clearly communicated and I understand and I get the desired result, there's no residue of this other part of it that was unfair. So what that means is the other stuff is gone and I'm forgiving you and there'd be no judgment. The next day, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm not going to think about it. It's going to be gone. Okay. Horses are incredible at forgiveness. Okay. They
Mm-hmm.
do hold the boundary, but they are incredible at forgiveness. And they're a solid example for us to look about for, first of all, beginning with ourselves. What we talked about a little bit earlier was shame. Because we've all done, if we have stuff that we're worried about that we're done that we think defines us, it's a problem. If that horse thinks that what I communicated to him that was unfair defines our relationship, we have a problem. Okay. We're never going to get past it. We're going to suffer and we're not going to be able to reach our potential or be as good as we can and do the things that we want to do. I believe that the key here is if we can forgive ourselves, if we can differentiate between what we have done and who we are not the same. And my message really is, hey, it doesn't matter what you have done. And I really mean that. I mean, it doesn't matter what you have done. That if you I mean, we've all done some, I mean, I've done some stuff, okay? And I wish I wouldn't have done it, and I've tried to go back and fix it, and some of it is not fixable. It is
Right,
not fixable. You
right.
know, I can't make it well. There's no amends to be made. It's just it's ruined. But I have to accept that that is part of the reason that I'm going to be able to be better moving forward. I have to expect the reason that I'm still an invaluable, I'm still right here with you, that I'm still an invaluable human being, okay?
Hmm.
That 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 is not going to be perfect. I'm an imperfect soul, and that has to be okay that I did those things, and it just means that I don't need to do them moving forward, but it doesn't define who I am, and I need to let those go. Set your boundary, don't do it again. Don't let uh but let it go. Those are huge things, because the longer that they hold on, they're having an impact, believe it or not, on everything that you're doing today.
Right. And you're not going to make the next best decision until you let that shame go.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about your work. I don't want to change lanes here. So tell me if I'm pulling you off. Tell me about how your work turned into you've got the horse piece. You now work with children, teenagers. Like
Yeah.
how did that come about and why?
It's a good question. I appreciate you asking it. And the thing of it is I look back and I said, you know what? If I would have known what mind management is, if I would have understood all this chatter and this noise in my mind and how to kind of begin to organize it and what a thought is, and I have control over it, if I would have if they would have, if somebody would have just taken me and said, Shane, here, I'm going to explain a few things to you right now, I would have had a whole different experience. Now, I frame my experience. We can frame our experience however we want. Okay. I talked to a man named Chad Foster, who wrote a book called Blind Ambition. And Chad Foster was a sighted 100%, had all of his sight as a boy, and had a disease to where he was either 20 or 21 when he was 100% blind. Okay. For the rest of his life.
Yeah.
At the time that I talked to him, he had a little boy and a wife that he had never seen with it through the lens of his eyes. Okay. And he told me at the end of that interview, he said that he would not change what has happened to him. He would not prefer to live his life sighted, because he would not be able to give to the world what he's able to give as an unsighted person. And I thought, you must be joking.
Right.
Would prefer to not have had a disease that took away your sight. And he clearly believes that to be true.
Hmm.
That's a choice. And you know what that tells me? That tells me that I can frame whatever I have done in my past into however the hell I want it to be, which doesn't mean, still, nonetheless, looking back, okay, when I began and I started to tell you my story about me as a young man, if someone would have took me under their wing and just said, hey Shane, there's a few things that I'd like you to know about how your brain works and your mind and what thoughts are and circumstances, and that you can control them, and that you're okay, man. You really are okay. And that this thing that we call our beliefs about ourselves, it's not something that we accomplish and check the box and move on in life to the next thing. It's a lifelong pursuit of a relationship with ourselves that's gonna, we're gonna be going along and things are gonna be pretty good, and then either somebody will do something to us or we'll do something, and our confidence will take a little bit like this. We got to take a little bit of look at it and decide what we're gonna do, and so it kind of goes like that throughout the course of our life. But if I would have known just a few little key things in the beginning, the trajectory of my life, I could have saved a lot of suffering that I caused to other people. And so that's where this came from. We take teenagers and their parents, and we try to, we get it done. We begin this understanding of what's going on in their mind, right? What thoughts are, basically mind management, how to manage all the stuff that's going on right here. And the same thing goes for the parents, okay? Because the parents, when the kid starts acting out and they're not getting the results when they want, kid starts doing bad things and acting out in negative ways, you know what goes on with the parents? They start feeling shame. I suck as a parent.
They did something wrong, right?
Yeah, I suck as a parent. Oh, remember that one time when I chose myself over my kids? And I mean, it goes on and on
Yep.
and on. They start blaming themselves. Guess what you do when you start blaming yourself and feeling shame? You start hiding and lying and you diminish yourself, and you're not there to support your kid as much who needs you the most right now. It's a bad cycle. So
Yeah.
me reflecting on me is why we talk to teens and their parents right now, and it's making an impact. We have a goal to have 1,000 teenagers go through stable living, which is our 6-month course of basically mind management. So that's why.
So is this a program that you do in person or virtually, or how does it work practically? Do they work with the horses? Is it just the horses as a talking point? Tell me about that.
Yeah, not all, but most of our clients are country and farm and ranch kids and stuff like that. So they have a little bit experience with horses, because our program, 90% is virtual online with horses just as the reference.
Okay.
And then a couple of times a year, we do live events that we incorporate horses into that are kind of fun.
That is fun. So do you actually use the horses in examples or
Yes, absolutely.
training, or how does that work?
That's exactly what we do. We show the principles. We have the horse demonstrate the principle,
Yeah.
in a live event, which is super fun.
And what are you finding with teenagers? Because I'm sure we're talking to some parents out there. What are you finding with teenagers is the key thing that the parents can do to help the kids embrace this concept? Because I think that's one of the reasons I became a life coach, because I thought if somebody would have taught me this when I was 20, I would have had a whole bunch easier time in
Yeah.
life. And so what do you find there?
Um, well, there's a lot of things to find. One thing is to find somebody that's relatable. You know, kids are kind of like horses too, in a little bit. Teenagers, they can't fully comprehend everything. I know they're in a hurry to grow up, and they want to, and they think they can, and they're close, but they can't fully. They're not fully developed as
Their
much.
brain isn't developed till they're
It,
like
it,
25, right?
exactly. However, um, they if they do better with somebody that's relatable. They do somebody with a mentor, somebody that they think has a little bit of sameness of them, that
Okay.
fully accepts them. I think it's important to I guess maybe we hear this a lot, and uh but I think one of the key. Okay, let me finish that thought. Somebody that they can relate to, that has a little bit of sameness, is not always 100% necessary, but it helps. Okay. A lot of times kids are more likely to open up. And once that they're open, then you can work, then that's how you begin to make progress. So
Right.
if you have somebody that's relatable, and the follow-up after our program is we try to get parents to a mentor, somebody a year or two or three older, to that usually goes for, helps on the long-term aspect of things like this. But one thing I wanted to say on this, the next thing is that I know about this because all the mistakes I've made with horses and I made with people, I've done them all. So I know how to make all the mistakes. And this is the one that I made, because with my kids, and I made it live, the people I work with and everything else. And it's something I still work on. And the key is this: a lot of times we don't want to hear what they have to say.
Mm.
I mean, look, I'm the parent. I'm going to tell you what the deal is. I've lived 3 times longer than you, and this is the way it is. So just shut up and here we go.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when kids, and we don't have to agree with them. We know they're probably not going to be right, maybe, right? But if we just take the time to, like Joe Caruso says, to honor their perspective. And
Mm.
what that means is just to hear it, and then maybe even question a little bit about the why that they have that perspective. When you when you take the time to hear their perspective, okay, and then you ask them a little bit, and if they're willing to tell you a little bit about why they have that perspective, they're telling you a little bit about them and their feelings, and then the connection starts to happen, and then you can begin to have progress. So honoring their perspective, I think, is a super good, I mean, it's so important.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of when my son was a teenager. He would come to me and I would always try to fix everything. It'd be like, fix this, fix that. And it would make him so angry. And he would
Yeah.
just be like, Mom, I just want you to listen. And so I had to learn that lesson to just listen.
Yeah, I do that with I'm guilty of doing that with my wife sometimes. We want to
I
fix
know we think
everything,
we
and
can fix it, right?
yeah, we want to fix, and it's a good key to do with everyone. It's not just kids. To have connection, and to have people feel good when you're what people want, what we all want. And again, I learned this concept from a guy named Joe Caruso, is that people people really don't like you for the things you are, the things that you've done, or who you really are. They like you because of how they feel when they're with you.
Mm,
And
yes.
that's
If
kind
they
of
feel
hard to
like you
see.
care and you want to listen to them. Mm-hmm.
And the way that you can achieve that is by honoring their perspective, by taking the time to listen first instead of just running your mouth about everything about you. Take the time to listen and honor their perspective. You don't have, that doesn't mean you have to agree with it. You don't have to go with it. You don't have to do anything. Just give it some respect and some time, and then ask them a little bit about why. And you will be amazed at the results that you can have with your relationships when you do that with your kids, adults, with everyone.
Yeah, that's a great leadership lesson too, with people that you work with, people that are your clients, just listening and trying to understand rather than fix.
For sure.
I love that. I love that. So, what have I not asked you that I should have?
Well, you've asked me a whole bunch of good questions. I appreciate the opportunity and the time that you've given us here today, Julie. I appreciate your show too. I like listening to your show. Um, there's one thing that I'll just leave you with, and that is that everyone that's listening to this show, I don't believe that it's a good idea to commit to the pursuit of a loving relationship with yourself. I don't think it's simply a good idea and it'll positively impact everything. I believe that it's our duty and our responsibility as human beings to do so. And I'm going to say that again. Our duty and our responsibility as human beings to commit to a loving relationship with ourselves, because it is a fact that we will not be able to give to the people that we love, or to make our contribution to this world in the short time that we're here fully, or reach our potential, if we do not do so.
Hmm.
And so I am really committed to this idea of that we really that of the importance of a pursuit of a loving relationship with ourselves, because hey man, you're worth it. You
Yeah.
are worth it.
Yeah. And it is work, but
It,
it's definitely doable, right? You're living proof of that.
it is doable.
I love that. So tell people where they can find out more about you and what you're doing. And you're going to have a new book out soon. So I'm excited about that. Maybe after your book's out, I'll have you back and we'll talk about that. Because I
That'd be
wrote a book
awesome.
last year and I'm all about it. It was a really interesting experience. So we'll have you back when the book comes out. But tell us where we can find you.
Yeah, thehorsemanshipjourney.com. You can sign up. I have a weekly video that's free that's called You Are Destined for Greatness. So that's just a fun little jolt into your week. You can sign up for that if you're inclined at thehorsemanshipjourney.com.
I love it. Well, it's been super fun to have you, and I definitely would love to have you back. There's so many more questions that I have. And I
Oh,
think we could talk about all of this mind training and loving yourself is what I'm all about too. So It's been super fun to meet you.
Thank you so much, Julie. Appreciate you.
All right. Thanks everyone for listening. Have a beautiful week and take care of yourself. Bye.